The first inkling of disaster came with the uncharacteristic tremor in my mother's voice message. Sandra Fleming Ryan never falters. She schemes. She emotionally blackmails. She occasionally issues veiled threats, but her voice never, ever breaks. I'm Pearl, and for 31 exhausting years, I've shouldered the burden of responsibility in a family that treats accountability like it's the plague itself. The haunting timestamp glared at me, 3:47 a.m. My mother's desperate plea poured through the speaker like a drowning woman gasping for air. "PP, sweetheart, there's been an issue with the bank. We need to talk right now. It's about Travis's loan. Please call us back immediately. Please." With mounting dread, I replayed it 3 times, each listen confirming my worst suspicions. They had finally crossed the line. The betrayal I'd been bracing for, the one I'd sensed looming like an impending storm, had arrived. My phone vibrated again. Dad calling. "Pearl, you need to come to the house now." "It's 4 in the morning, I protested wearily, even as my fingers were already fumbling with my jeans. "This can't wait until morning. Your mother is absolutely beside herself." If you enjoyed this story and it touched your heart, let us know in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe so you never miss out on future stories. 20 agonizing minutes later, I pulled into their driveway. The house of my childhood stood mockingly unchanged, immaculate lawn, perfect trim, a facade of prosperity concealing the rot beneath. Inside, my parents huddled at the kitchen island, looking ravaged by guilt and fear. "What did you do?" I demanded, though in my heart, I already knew the terrible truth. Mother reached desperately for my hand. I deliberately kept mine buried in my coat pockets. "Sweetheart," she began, her voice dripping with that sickly sweet manipulation I'd come to recognize. "We had to make some difficult decisions for Travis, for the family." "What did you do?" Dad cleared his throat nervously. "The business loan for Travis and Cameron's venture. We needed additional collateral. And we used your savings account," Mother confessed, her voice rising defensively. "Just as backing. We never thought it would come to this, but Cameron's disappeared. And the payments." The kitchen seemed to spin violently around me. My savings account, the one I'd nurtured since I was 16, the repository of 15 years of my blood, sweat, and tears. "We knew you'd understand," Mother insisted desperately. "Travis needed this chance. You've always been the family's savior." A bitter laugh escaped me, sharp as broken glass. "How?" I demanded, fury building in my chest. "How did you even access my account?" Dad couldn't bear to meet my accusing gaze. We still had some of your old documentation from when you were younger. The bank knew us. You forged my signature." The words hung in the air like a damning verdict. Mother visibly recoiled. "Not forged exactly," she stammered. "We just implied your participation. The bank knows our family." "Where's Travis now?" "He's not answering his phone," Dad admitted shamefully. "But Pearl, that's irrelevant right now. The bank is calling in the loan. They want the collateral." With deliberate calm masking my inner turmoil, I retrieved my phone and opened my banking app. Mother lunged for it, but I stepped back defensively. "Don't," I warned, my voice dangerously quiet. "Don't touch me right now." I turned the screen toward them with grim satisfaction. The account displayed a balance of $291,247. Mother's face drained of all color.
"What? No.
There should be over $300,000 there." "Pearl, what have you done?" "What have I done?" My voice could have frozen fire. "That's truly your question right now." "Pearl," Dad pleaded desperately. "We need that money. The house is tied to this loan, too. We could lose everything." I surveyed the kitchen where my childhood had unfolded, where I'd learned harsh lessons about responsibility, while Travis absorbed the lesson that his catastrophes would always be remedied by others. Where I'd watched, with growing resentment, as my parents repeatedly enabled him, using my stability as their eternal safety net. "You know, it's tragically ironic," I said, bitter realization lacing every word. 3 months ago, I caught Mom asking suspicious questions about my finances. Then Travis started making those midnight calls, raving about his amazing business opportunity, and Dad kept dropping those heavy hints about how family always supports family. I moved purposefully toward the door, my fingers gripping the knob like a lifeline. So, I relocated the money, all of it actually overseas, into a shell corporation that now legally owns those assets. Completely legitimate, I assure you. I had exceptional legal advice. You knew, Mother whispered, horror dawning across her face. I knew you'd attempt something this desperate eventually. I just never imagined you'd commit actual fraud in the process. But the house, Dad protested frantically. Your childhood home is about to become someone else's concern entirely. I pulled the door open, resolve strengthening with every breath. You should probably consult an attorney. I already have. Pearl. Mother cried out desperately. We're your family. I turned back one final time, my heart hardening. Yes, you are. And that's precisely why I knew I needed protection from you. The door closed behind me with a soft, definitive click that echoed like the final period in a painful chapter of my life. You did what? Stella nearly appended her coffee across her immaculate law office desk, eyes wide with astonishment. 2 weeks before my parents' midnight confession, I'd already set my defensive strategy in motion. I moved everything, I repeated calmly, watching shock spread across my best friend and attorney's face. Every cent I've accumulated since college, Grandma's inheritance, even my emergency reserves. And you were certain they were plotting something? With trembling fingers, I retrieved my phone and played the damning recording from 3 weeks prior. Mother's calculating voice filled the office. Pearl, honey, I was thinking about your savings account. You know, the one from Midwest Bank. Have you considered diversifying? Maybe putting some of it in the family trust. Stella's expression hardened into stone as the evidence unfolded before her. That's a blatant fishing expedition for information, Stella observed, her eyes narrowing. Just wait, I insisted, my finger hovering over the play button. The recording continued, Travis's voice oozing with his trademark manipulation. Mom, I just need you to ask her. Pearl's always been so responsible with finances. She'd want to help if she understood how crucial this is. I stopped the playback with a trembling finger. And there's more. Dad inquiring about my account numbers for supposed tax purposes. Travis making those desperate midnight calls about his revolutionary business opportunity with Cameron. It's like witnessing an inevitable catastrophe unfold in excruciating slow motion. Brilliant move, Stella declared admiringly, her laptop already open and ready for battle. Relocating the money was absolutely the right defensive strategy, but we need to fortify everything properly. Her fingers danced across the keyboard with urgent purpose. What's the total sum we're safeguarding? $312,423.16. She released a low, impressed whistle. That's a substantial fortune to protect. Give me just an hour. That single hour stretched into 3 intense ones, but by the conclusion, we had constructed an impenetrable financial fortress, a meticulously documented shell company in the Cayman Islands, comprehensive legal paperwork detailing the transfer of assets, every single element strictly adhering to legal requirements. There, Stella announced with quiet triumph, sliding the freshly printed documents across her desk. Your hard-earned money is now officially owned by Pearl's Wisdom LLC, registered securely offshore. You retain sole directorship, but the company legally holds the assets. Should anyone attempt to claim your personal funds as collateral, they'll discover nothing but an empty vault. Precisely, I confirmed, a weight lifting from my shoulders. But Pearl, she cautioned, leaning forward with growing concern, if they've already misused your personal information. My phone's sudden vibration cut through her warning like a knife. Travis. Hey, sis. His voice dripped with that artificial cheerfulness that always preceded a request for money. Remember that brilliant business concept I mentioned? Well, Cameron and I are making extraordinary progress. Truly groundbreaking developments. Just need a touch of family backing to cross the final threshold. How much? I interrupted, my voice cold as steel. What? How much money are you demanding this time? It's not like that, he protested, indignation creeping into his tone. We simply need some financial backing. Mom and Dad are already handling the paperwork. I terminated the call, my stomach churning with dread. It's unfolding more rapidly than I anticipated. I confessed to Stella, panic rising in my chest. She nodded with grim determination. We should immediately subpoena those loan documents if they've utilized your information without proper consent.
They have.
I'm absolutely certain they have. That constitutes serious fraud, Pearl. Criminal-level fraud. My phone vibrated again, a message from Mother. Travis is devastated. Call him back immediately. Family helps family. I displayed the message to Stella, my hands shaking slightly. She shook her head in disbelief. They genuinely don't recognize it, do they? How they're systematically exploiting you. Oh, they recognize it, I replied, my voice barely audible. They simply don't care as long as their manipulation succeeds. That night, sleep evaded me completely. My thoughts raced through Travis's disturbing pattern of financial destruction. The failed tech startup during college that completely depleted Dad's hard-earned bonus. That once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity that devoured Mom's entire inheritance. The endless string of doomed business ventures that invariably concluded identically, family savings evaporating into thin air while Travis offered hollow promises of reform next time. My phone illuminated with another message, Dad this time. Your mother is absolutely distraught. Just speak with Travis. He desperately needs his sister's support. I responded with painful honesty. And what about what I need? His reply arrived with shocking speed and devastating clarity. Don't be selfish, Pearl. Family comes first. I appeared at Stella's office the moment it opened the following morning. I need you to undertake something else for me, I announced, dropping a substantial stack of documents onto her desk. Every financial record I could possibly locate. Bank statements, loan applications, anything bearing my signature from the past decade. She carefully examined them, searching for a specific pattern. Systematic exploitation. Mother's suspicious comment about the family trust triggered something. I need to know what else they've done using my identity. Stella's expression transformed into profound concern. You suspect this isn't their first transgression? I believe. I hesitated, the crushing weight of realization settling painfully in my chest. I believe I functioned as their financial safety net for significantly longer than I ever imagined. She nodded gravely, already reaching for her phone with renewed urgency. If you enjoyed this story and it touched your heart, let us know in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe so you never miss out on future stories. I'll immediately assign my investigative team. But Pearl, she captured my gaze intently, if we uncover what you're suspecting, then I'll have confirmation I made the right decision, and they'll finally learn that manipulative actions carry serious consequences. As I departed her office, my phone vibrated with another demanding message from Mother. Family meeting tonight. Non-negotiable. Your brother requires our collective support. I typed back just 2 defiant words. Not anymore. Then I decisively blocked their numbers, drove straight to the bank, and methodically closed every single account bearing my name. The teller's face registered obvious concern when I withdrew the final $2,124.40 in cash. Is everything all right, Miss Fleming Ryan? I offered a serene smile, newfound strength flowing through me. Yes, everything is finally exactly as it should be. The damning loan documents crashed onto my parents' kitchen table with a thunderous impact. 3 days following their midnight confession, I'd forced this confrontational meeting through Stella's legal intervention. Show me everything, I demanded, my voice unwavering. Mother's hands trembled visibly as she reluctantly spread the papers. Father stood rigidly by the window, his back deliberately turned as though the garden suddenly held fascinating secrets. It's all perfectly standard procedure, Mother insisted, her voice unnaturally bright with desperation. Just routine documentation for Travis's business financing. I pointed accusingly at the signature on page 3. That is categorically not my handwriting. Well, Technically no, but, and this bank statement, I interrupted, extracting another incriminating document. The one documenting my account balance as collateral. It's dated precisely 2 months ago. Remarkably convenient, considering I relocated those funds 3 months prior. Father finally turned to face the uncomfortable truth. We were forced to take action. Travis and Cameron possessed this extraordinary opportunity. Where exactly is Cameron, by the way? I challenged. Since you're all so thoroughly convinced of this extraordinary opportunity's legitimacy. A suffocating silence descended upon the kitchen. Mother suddenly became intensely preoccupied with straightening the incriminating papers. We can't establish contact. Father finally confessed reluctantly. Can't establish contact. I leaned forward, incredulity radiating from every pore. What precisely does that mean? He's disappeared, Mother whispered, her voice barely audible. His phone service is disconnected. His apartment stands completely empty. Travis theorizes he's relocated to Singapore. I released a bitter laugh utterly devoid of humor. So the business partner has vanished with the investor's money, and your brilliant solution was to forge my legal documents. We didn't forge, Mother began defensively. Stop the endless lying. I slammed my palm against the table with explosive force. I possess the original documentation right here. You meticulously copied my signature from my college application forms. You deliberately fabricated bank statements. You committed serious criminal fraud to protect your precious son. Mother's voice escalated with righteous indignation. Everything we've done has been to preserve this family's welfare. No, I contradicted, my voice dangerously quiet. Everything you've done has been exclusively to protect Travis. And now you've recklessly dragged me into his mess without my knowledge or consent. Father cleared his throat awkwardly. Pearl, you failed to comprehend the full situation. The house itself is tied to this loan. We used it as supplementary collateral, believing Travis's venture would miraculously succeed where every previous disaster has failed? How many iterations of this destructive cycle must we endure? I retrieved my phone and began methodically cataloging the evidence of their betrayal. The doomed tech startup in college that drained $60,000 from your accounts. The so-called revolutionary app that devoured Mom's entire inheritance. The mysterious import-export business that conveniently went bankrupt overnight, and now this catastrophe. Those were essential learning experiences, Mom insisted defensively. They were colossal failures that you meticulously cleaned up, that our entire family salvaged repeatedly, but this time the cycle ends. A car door slammed violently outside. Through the window, I glimpsed Travis staggering drunkenly up the driveway, shockingly intoxicated despite the morning hour. How perfectly theatrical, I muttered bitterly as he burst through the door like a hurricane. Did you confess everything? He demanded accusingly, his body swaying precariously, about the foreclosure ultimatum. My head jerked upward in shock. The what? Mom shot Travis a desperate warning glance, but he was far too inebriated to comprehend her silent plea. 10 miserable days, he slurred pathetically. The heartless bank gives us just 10 days before they seize the house completely. Unless, he gazed at me with shameless hope gleaming in his bloodshot eyes. Unless I rescue all of you yet again. I completed his thought icily. As always. You're hoarding the money, he erupted suddenly. You've always selfishly stockpiled money. Little Miss Perfect with her precious savings and her... Enough. Dad's voice cracked through the air like a thunderclap. Travis, sit down immediately before you collapse. I rose abruptly, gathering the incriminating documents with trembling fingers. So the house enters foreclosure in just 10 days. Mom desperately reached for my hand, her fingers like claws. Pearl, darling, we can certainly mend this crisis together as a family. You simply need to transfer some funds back immediately. Those funds categorically don't exist anymore, I interrupted sharply. They legally belong to a corporation now, one meticulously structured specifically to prevent exactly this kind of manipulative situation. But we're your flesh and blood. Travis wobbled dangerously to his unsteady feet. You can't possibly just... Can't what exactly? Protect my life's work? Prevent everything I've painstakingly built from being devoured by another one of your catastrophic schemes. I strode purposefully toward the door. The money has vanished forever. The house is irretrievably lost. And this time, your convenient safety net isn't swooping in to rescue you. Pearl. Dad called desperately after me. The ruthless media will mercilessly expose everything. The humiliating foreclosure, the business collapse. It will utterly destroy our family reputation. I turned back one final time, my eyes burning with years of suppressed fury. You orchestrated that destruction yourselves when you arrogantly decided my consent was completely unnecessary. When you deliberately chose criminal fraud instead of confronting painful reality. What terrible revenge are you planning? Mom's voice had shrunk to a frightened whisper. I'm going to let you finally experience genuine consequences. Perhaps for the first time in your privileged lives. I yanked open the door decisively. Oh, and Travis? You might want to secure legal representation immediately. When they fail to extract the money from me, they'll come hunting ferociously for you next. The final words I heard as I walked away forever were Travis's pathetic drunken whine. But I thought you absolutely promised Pearl would magically fix everything. You swore she would. Some deceptive promises, I realized with crystallizing clarity, were destined to be shattered, especially those recklessly made using someone else's hard-earned money. Just contemplate the devastating impact on our distinguished family name. Mom's desperate voice crackled accusingly through my phone speaker. Day 4 of their increasingly frantic campaign to access my secured offshore funds. The family name? I echoed with biting irony. You mean the very name you criminally forged on legal documents? Pearl, I'm begging you. Your father's prestigious firm is already asking uncomfortable questions. The exclusive country club buzzes ceaselessly with humiliating rumors. We certainly raised you better than this selfish betrayal. I terminated the call abruptly and immediately received a threatening text from Dad. The merciless media will utterly destroy everything we've built. Is that truly your vindictive intention? Before I could formulate a response, my Aunt Meredith's name suddenly flashed across my screen. I answered warily, bracing for yet another manipulative guilt trip. Those absolute idiots finally crossed the line, didn't they? Meredith's razor-sharp voice contained not a trace of familial sympathy. Sandra called me sobbing dramatically about how her ungrateful daughter is callously allowing the entire family to crash and burn spectacularly. So, you're calling to pressure me into helping them? Hell no. Meredith laughed with genuine amusement. I'm calling to reveal something shocking about that precious house they're so desperately scrambling to save. Something they've deliberately concealed from you for years. I straightened immediately, my attention completely captured. I'm listening intently. Your grandparents, my parents, legally left that house in a 3-way trust. Equal division, Sandra, me, and specifically you. Direct inheritance designated to the grandchild. My hand tightened convulsively around the phone. What? Oh, they conveniently never informed you? Utterly shocking. Meredith's caustic sarcasm could have effortlessly stripped industrial paint. You legally own 1/3 of that entire house, Pearl. Have rightfully owned it since your 18th birthday. Yet somehow they've been making major financial decisions about your property without ever consulting you. How could that possibly be legal? Because they deliberately never instructed you to examine the official deed. But that's not even the worst revelation. She paused dramatically. Remember that substantial trust fund your grandparents lovingly established? The one that mysteriously got reinvested precisely when Travis desperately needed startup capital for his first disastrous business venture? My stomach plummeted sickeningly. Dear God, no. Yes, that money was rightfully yours too. Sandra and Stuart secretly liquidated it using Travis's name. They exploited outdated paperwork from your minor years. Sound disturbingly familiar? I frantically grabbed my laptop, my fingers trembling violently as I typed. Meredith, please send me absolutely everything you possess. Documents, dates, any relevant evidence. Already done. Check your email immediately. She hesitated meaningfully. Pearl, Understand this crucial truth. This isn't remotely the first time they've exploited you financially. It's merely the first time you've caught them in their decades-long deception. After hanging up, I immediately forwarded everything to Stella and drove frantically to her office. She was already intensely reviewing the devastating files when I arrived breathlessly. She shook her head in professional shock. This constitutes systematic, calculated financial abuse. They've been exploiting your name and assets for years with shocking impunity. How catastrophically bad is it? She grimly turned her screen toward me, revealing the horrifying truth. The trust fund was valued at $90,000 when they secretly liquidated it. The house equity you're rightfully entitled to amounts to approximately $200,000. And there's substantially more, small accounts, various investments, all systematically drained or leveraged to finance Travis's doomed ventures. Why couldn't I see this obvious pattern? Because they methodically conditioned you from childhood to believe this exploitation was normal. To accept that helping family meant allowing them to take whatever they desired without question or resistance. My phone buzzed urgently again. An alarming text from my cousin Quincy. Urgent warning. Travis is drunkenly revealing details about your fake company at the club bar right now. Claims he possesses definitive proof you're illegally concealing money. How could Travis possibly know about the confidential shell company? Stella frowned with professional concern. Someone must have deliberately informed him. I showed her another threatening text from Dad. If federal authorities investigate your suspicious offshore accounts, the consequences won't merely destroy our family reputation. Stella's eyes narrowed dangerously. Are they actually threatening you with legal consequences? Attempting to terrorize me into submission. Their same predictable manipulation pattern. Well, she smiled with fierce determination. Let's give them something genuinely terrifying to fear. She decisively pulled out a fresh legal pad. Time to file for an immediate emergency injunction. We're going to completely freeze everything, the pending house sale, any financial transfers, absolutely everything. Until we can definitively prove exactly what they've systematically done with your assets throughout the years. They'll fight these allegations viciously. Let them try. The extensive paper trail provides irrefutable evidence. And Pearl, she captured my gaze meaningfully. The statute of limitations on financial fraud extends 5 full years. Everything they've perpetrated since you turned 26 remains fully prosecutable under federal law. My phone illuminated with yet another desperate call from Mom. This time, I answered with the speaker on. Pearl, we're your parents. We've given you everything. You owe us this. Calmly, I replied, actually, according to Grandma and Grandpa's will, you both owe me quite a bit. Shall we talk about the trust fund you stole? Dead silence. Or the house equity you conveniently forgot to mention? Or maybe, I continued, should we start with the countless times you forged my signature after I turned 18? Mom's voice quivered. Who told you? Does it even matter? I said coldly. It's all documented. It's all evidence now. Dad's voice crackled through the line. Evidence? Evidence of what? A fraud. Stella's voice chimed in, sharp as a blade. My client is pursuing full legal action. I suggest you both retain counsel immediately. The line went dead. I stared into the heavy silence. Well, I said dryly, I guess family dinner is canceled. Stella started organizing the thick stack of papers. They're going to come at you hard now. Are you ready for that? I thought about all the years of manipulation, the stolen chances, the times I carried the burden while they drained me blind. Yeah, I said with steel in my voice. I'm ready to show them exactly how responsible I can be. The mound of documents on Marcus's desk painted a story so ugly it made my stomach turn. Marcus, a forensic accountant turned lawyer, had spent 3 days meticulously reconstructing my financial life. It's methodical, he pointed at a timeline. Every major financial move in your adult life? Redirected. My college fund? Transferred to Travis's shaky startup. My savings for a first home? Magically moved into a family investment. Even my car loan? Tainted with hidden liens. How did I not see any of this? I whispered. Because they built it slow, Marcus said. Like a house of cards, tiny lie after tiny lie. He pulled out yet another paper, his expression darkening. But this, he said, this worries me the most. I looked down. It was a loan application from 5 years ago, bearing my signature. I never signed this, I said, feeling cold all over. No, Marcus agreed grimly. But someone did. 17 different documents, Pearl. All forged with variations of your name. Loans, asset transfers, all tied to you. My phone buzzed urgently. A message from Quincy. Travis is at the country club again, telling everyone you're trying to destroy the family. Aunt Sandra's crying in the ladies' room. Let them cry, I muttered under my breath. Marcus raised an eyebrow. The social backlash is only beginning. Are you prepared? Before I could answer, my door buzzer blared. Through the intercom, Travis's slurred voice snarled. Pearl, open up. We need to talk. I pressed the button, speaking clearly. Go home, Travis. You're killing Mom. Dad's firm wants him to take a leave. All because you won't help your own family. Marcus discreetly started recording everything on his phone. You forged my documents, I said into the intercom, steady and loud. You, Mom, and Dad, you committed fraud. It wasn't fraud, Travis bellowed. It was creative financing. And what about your fake company, huh? That's no better. I froze. Marcus shot me a sharp look. What fake company, Travis? The one you made to hide the money. Dad's friend at the bank found out everything. He knows where you moved it. Marcus's fingers were already flying over his keyboard. That's a breach of banking privacy, he said grimly. We'll add that to the lawsuit. The buzzer screamed again. Travis's voice grew more wild. Come down and talk. We can fix this, just like always. There's nothing to fix, I replied coldly. It's over. His voice cracked. Then I'll tell everyone about the offshore accounts, about how you betrayed your own blood. Good, I shot back. Tell them how you knew I'd finally stop enabling you. Tell them why you committed fraud. Let's put it all out in the open. Silence. Then a heavy thud against the door. Probably his fist. You think you're so perfect, he spat, voice ragged. So much better than me. But you're just selfish. Always were. Mom and Dad gave you everything. No, I said softly. They took everything. And now, they're losing it. That's called consequences. I heard him stumble away, hurling curses into the night. Marcus ended the recording. Well, he said dryly, that was illuminating. He just admitted premeditated fraud and dragged your father into a banking violation. My phone buzzed again. A message from Stella. Your parents' lawyer reached out. They want to negotiate. Almost instantly, another text popped up from Mom. We raised you better than this. A daughter who loved her family would never do this. I handed the phone to Marcus. He read the text, his face grim. They're desperate. The foreclosure clock's ticking. Their old tricks aren't working anymore. What's next? I asked. Marcus pulled out a fresh set of legal forms. We file this. A formal complaint. Every forged signature. Every misused fund. Every shady transfer. It's all documented. And once it's filed, it becomes public record, Marcus said. They'll be investigated. Possibly even by the FBI. This qualifies as wire fraud. My hands trembled as I signed the complaint, with my real signature, not the mangled versions they faked for years. There's one more thing, Marcus said, sliding a final paper across the desk. I leaned closer, and my blood ran cold. It was a transfer form from 12 years ago. It showed my entire college fund moved into a business account. The signature? A forgery, plain as day. So that's how it all started, I whispered. My first semester payment bounced because of this, I said hollowly. And you took out loans instead, Marcus finished for me, while Travis burned through your money on his first doomed business. My phone buzzed once more. A message from Dad. Whatever you're planning to file, don't. We can work this out as a family. I locked eyes with Marcus. Send it. Send everything. He nodded, scanning the thick pile of documents. You know there's no going back after this. Good, I said fiercely, because I'm done going back. It's their turn to march straight into the consequences they've earned. The bank's seizure notice arrived on a gray Tuesday. By Wednesday afternoon, my phone exploded with messages. Mom had a full-blown meltdown at the country club. She started screaming during lunch, Meredith told me on the phone. Throwing plates, calling you every name she could think of. They had to physically remove her. And Dad? I asked. His firm forced him to take a leave. Fraud charges don't play well in wealth management. I was still at Stella's office when Meredith called again, voice tight with panic. You need to know something, she said. Travis took out another loan, a private one, with some very shady people. My stomach dropped. How do you know this? Because, Meredith said shakily, one of them just showed up at my house looking for him. Pearl, these aren't bank people, she whispered. These are the kind who break kneecaps. Stella was already pulling up documents on her computer. We need to document everything, she said, especially if there are criminal elements involved. My phone buzzed. A group text from Mom popped up. Emergency family meeting, 7 p.m. Everyone must attend. Don't go, Stella warned. I have to, I replied firmly. But I'm not going alone. At exactly 7 p.m., I walked into my parents' house, Stella right beside me. The living room was packed, Mom, Dad, Travis, Meredith, and Quincy all there. Mom's mascara was streaked down her face, Dad looked like a ghost, and Travis couldn't keep still, twitching and fidgeting. This is a family meeting, Mom snapped, throwing a furious glare at Stella. She stays, I said, sitting down calmly. Now, what is this about? We need to fix this, Dad said, desperation bleeding through his voice. As a family, the bank, the investors, they're not being reasonable. Reasonable? Meredith let out a sharp, bitter laugh. You committed fraud, Stuart. Against your own daughter and multiple times. We did what we had to do. Mom burst out, her voice cracking. For Travis. For the family name. And how's that working out for you? I asked, voice soft but cutting. Travis shot to his feet. This is all your fault, he shouted, pointing at me. If you had just helped like you were supposed to, like I was supposed to. I slowly pulled out my phone and hit record. Tell me exactly what I was supposed to do, Travis. You know what, he spat, pacing in agitation. Mom and Dad said you'd understand. They said you'd do what's right when the time came. Mom's face turned a ghostly white. Travis, stop talking, she hissed. They said you'd never let the family down. Travis pressed on, oblivious. That's why they used your accounts, because they knew you'd cover it. Stella was scribbling notes furiously. Mom lunged for my phone, but I dodged easily. So they planned this? I asked, voice trembling with anger. They knew they were going to steal from me? Of course they did, Travis shouted. They've been doing it for years. Ever since my first business needed money. Travis, shut up. Dad barked, standing up abruptly. No, let him talk, Meredith said coldly, pulling out her own phone and recording. Let's hear more about this family's creative financing. Quincy, who had been silently observing, suddenly piped up. Hey, is this being recorded on multiple devices? 'Cause I think I just accidentally shared it to the club's group chat. The entire room froze. The what? Mom whispered, her voice trembling. Quincy glanced at his phone. Oh, yeah, definitely shared it. And looks like a few local reporters are in that chat too. He gave a mock apologetic shrug. My bad. Delete it. Travis shrieked, lunging for Quincy's phone. Can't, Quincy said, smiling thinly. Already downloaded. Multiple times. Mom collapsed into her chair. Do you realize what you've done? Yeah, Quincy said coolly. I made sure the truth finally got out. Something long overdue in this family. My phone started buzzing nonstop, notifications exploding, social media tagging me left and right. It's trending, Stella said, glancing at her own phone. Local business pages picking it up. Headlines say, "Prominent family's financial fraud exposed." Dad turned to me, pleading, "Pearl, you have to make a statement. Tell them it's not true." I stood up slowly. "You're right. I should make a statement." "Thank God," Mom breathed. "I think I'll start," I said, my voice icy, "with how you stole my college fund. Then I'll move on to the forged documents. Would you like to fact-check it for me first?" Dad's face drained of color. "You wouldn't dare." Right on cue, my phone rang. A local news reporter calling. "Actually," I said, staring him down, "I think I'll take this call right here. Anyone want to stay and listen?" They scattered. Mom fled to the kitchen. Dad disappeared into his study. Travis bolted out the front door. Only Meredith, Quincy, and Stella remained. "You know what the best revenge is?" Quincy asked, grinning wickedly. "The truth," I said, told loudly and publicly. I answered the call. "Yes," I said. "I'd be happy to comment on the situation. In fact, I have quite a story to tell." Behind me, I heard Mom sobbing. But for the first time in my life, her tears didn't stir an ounce of sympathy in me. The blog post I wrote went viral within hours. The cost of being the responsible one, how my family used my financial identity for decades, spread like wildfire across every platform. My phone buzzed nonstop. Thousands of shares, hundreds of people sharing their own stories. "You've struck a nerve," Stella said, scrolling through the overwhelming flood of comments. I'd laid it all out: the stolen college fund, the forged documents, the years of financial exploitation disguised as family duty, every claim backed by scanned paperwork and recordings. "Have you seen the news?" Meredith shouted from the other room. "Your father's firm just announced his early retirement. Corporate Code 4, fired with extreme prejudice." My mother had been asked to resign from 3 charity boards. The country club was reconsidering their membership. Their carefully manicured social image was crumbling, brick by humiliating brick. Travis disappeared, Quincy reported later that afternoon. Packed a bag and fled town. Word is he's heading to the airport. I stood outside my childhood home, watching the foreclosure team strip it down for auction. Stella pulled up with coffee. "You don't have to be here for this," she said gently. "I do," I replied, taking a sip. "I need to see it end." Through the dusty windows, I spotted Mom sitting in her car across the street, just watching. She hadn't tried to contact me since everything exploded. My phone rang, an unknown number. "Is this Pearl?" a woman's voice asked. "I'm with social services. We're trying to reach Travis's next of kin. You're listed as his emergency contact." Of course I was. I muttered, "What's happened?" "He's been admitted to a facility in Arizona," she said softly. "He's asking for help with some financial obligations." I ended the call and deleted the voicemail that followed. "More bills?" Stella asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and concern. "Always," I replied, feeling the weight of it all. A black SUV pulled up to the house. 2 men in suits stepped out, their faces serious and official. "FBI," one of them announced, showing his badge. "We're here about the wire fraud allegations." I nodded toward the house. "They're inside. Follow the sound of crying." As the agents walked past, Mom finally got out of her car and approached me. "Are you happy now?" she demanded, her voice roaring with frustration. "You've destroyed everything we built." "No," I corrected her, my tone calm but firm. "I exposed what you destroyed. There's a difference." "We're your parents," she shouted. "You're criminals who happened to raise me." I shot back. She flinched, her face pale. "We gave you everything. And I took everything," I said quietly. "And now you're losing everything. That's not revenge. That's mathematics." Dad emerged from the house, escorted by the FBI agents. He looked anxious, defeated. "Pearl," he called out desperately, "please, one last time, help us fix this." I walked over to him, close enough to see the fear in his eyes. "No," I said softly, shaking my head. "I'm not fixing anything anymore. You did this, all of it." I continued. "Now you get to experience what Travis never had to learn, consequences." "But where will we go?" Mom cried, her tears flowing again. That sounds like a you problem. I replied coldly, using the phrase she had thrown at me when my college fund vanished.
My phone buzzed again.
Another reporter wanted a comment. I answered on speaker. Yes, I'm watching the foreclosure now, I said, my voice unwavering. No, I won't be helping my parents relocate. Yes, I have documentation of every fraudulent transaction they made in my name. Would you like copies? Mom reached for the phone, but I stepped back. Stop, I said firmly. You don't get to control this narrative anymore. The movers were carrying out the last of the furniture, 25 years of memories being loaded into trucks. What about family loyalty? Dad asked weakly. Loyalty. I laughed, the sound bitter and sharp. Let's talk about loyalty. Let's talk about stealing your daughter's future to fund your son's failures. Let's talk about forging documents and lying for decades. That kind of loyalty, I added, voice dripping with disdain. Stella touched my arm gently. The FBI wants to take your official statement now. I nodded, then turned back to my parents one last time. You know what's funny? I said, the words heavy with finality. I'm not even angry anymore. I'm just done. Done fixing. Done enabling. Done pretending this was ever okay. Pearl, please. Mom tried one last time. Goodbye, Mom, I said, cutting her off. Good luck with the FBI. And if Travis calls from Arizona, I added coldly, tell him his emergency contact is no longer in service. I walked away, their voices calling after me, fading like old photographs. In my pocket, my phone buzzed again. Another voicemail from Travis. I deleted it without listening. Some people say revenge is best served cold, but this wasn't revenge. It was liberation, and it felt warm, like sunshine after a very long winter. Behind me, I heard the foreclosure notice being taped to the door. The sound of paper hitting wood was like a period at the end of a very long sentence. Finally, gloriously, the end. You're really doing this? Stella asked, watching me pack my carry-on for Italy. 3 weeks of art, wine, and not a single family obligation. I replied, folding another dress. Want to join me for the Florence leg? Already booked my ticket. She held up her phone with a sly smile. Someone has to help you spend all that legally protected money. My viral post had sparked a movement. Survivors of financial abuse were sharing stories, creating support networks, and demanding legislative change. I'd been asked to testify before a state committee about strengthening identity theft laws between family members. My phone buzzed again. It was Meredith. Your mother's been calling everyone, she wrote. She says she and your father are living in some extended stay motel while the FBI investigation continues. She keeps saying if you just talk to them. Not my problem anymore, I replied. I know. Just thought you should know, Meredith texted back. Travis surfaced in Arizona. He's telling everyone he's starting a new business venture. I laughed bitterly. Good luck finding investors with his name all over the fraud headlines. That's just it, Meredith replied. He's using a different name now. But don't worry. I already tipped off the relevant authorities. The doorbell rang. Quincy stood there with coffee and pastries. Brought your going away breakfast, he said, setting everything down. Also thought you might want to see this. He pulled up a news article on his phone. Local financial firm faces class action lawsuit over fraud allegations. The headline read, Your dad's old company. Turns out, you weren't the only one they helped commit fraud for. The FBI investigation opened a whole can of worms. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. It's Travis. Got a new phone. Please, I need help one last time. I blocked the number without responding. You know what I realized? I told Quincy and Stella. Revenge isn't about hurting people. It's about stepping away and letting natural consequences take their course. Speaking of consequences, Stella said, checking her email. The bank just approved your restitution claim. They're returning every dollar they can trace from the fraudulent transfers. I don't even want it, I said flatly. Donate it to financial literacy programs. Already drafted the paperwork. Another text came through, a photo from Meredith. My parents were standing outside their motel, looking lost and small. Mom had written below it, "See what you've done to us?" I typed back quickly,
No.
"See what you've done to yourselves." Quincy peered over my shoulder. "They still don't get it, do they?" "They never will," I replied, my voice flat. "That's not my problem anymore," I added, the weight of those words settling in. I finished packing, slipping my passport into my bag last. First-class ticket to Rome, then Florence, then wherever I felt like going. No one to answer to, no crisis to solve, no guilt to carry. "Car's here," Stella announced. "Ready." I took one last look around my apartment. On the coffee table sat the only family photo I'd kept. It was from my graduation, before I knew about the stolen college fund, before I understood what family could really do to family. "You're not taking it?" Quincy asked, his voice soft with surprise. "No," I said, picking up my bag. "I'm traveling light." At the door, my phone buzzed. One final text from Mom. "You can't just abandon your family forever." I showed it to Stella and Quincy. "Watch me," I said. We all laughed, a bitter, freeing sound that echoed in the air. The morning was bright and clear as we headed to the airport. No storm clouds, no dramatic weather to match the moment. Just sunshine and endless possibility. "You know what's funny?" I said, breaking the silence as we pulled up to departures. "They always said family was about sacrifice, about giving up what you want for what they need. And now?" Stella asked, her voice laced with understanding. "Now," I said, my eyes gleaming, "I know that real family, the kind you choose, is about growing together, not bleeding each other dry." Quincy hugged me goodbye. "Bring me back something ridiculously expensive." With my legally protected money, always, I grinned. Stella checked her own ticket. "See you in Florence next week. Try not to buy all the art before I get there." As I walked through security, my phone buzzed one last time. A voicemail from Dad. "Pearl, please. We're still your parents. You can't just walk away." I deleted it without listening to the end. They were right about one thing. I was walking away, but they were wrong about why. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about them anymore. It was about finally, truly understanding that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for a drowning family is let go of the rope. I boarded my flight, ordered champagne, and watched America disappear beneath the clouds. Somewhere down there, my family was facing the consequences of their choices. Without me, without my money, without their safety net. And I was flying free, light as air, into a future that belonged entirely to me.